Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. Oh, you got a TST mug.
Yep.
Adorable. So that's actually because I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you about music and improvisation and all of that great stuff. But the reason that we're having this talk is because I was boothing at SatanCon and I saw you come through the merch hall, uh, and
Oh
I
yeah.
I I had some of my friends from the BIPOC panel on a couple months ago, and now I we think you went to the BIPOC panel, but I'm not sure because I was sitting in the merch hall hawking my book.
Oh, I did, yeah.
And yeah, we kind of want to know what you thought of that before we even get into music and cool stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean I thought it was really cool. I mean it's about kind of inclusion, and in all kinds of spaces, but specifically there. And I thought that that was obviously a relevant topic. It was cool. It was interesting to hear about it, to just hear from that perspective because it's something I didn't know about.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so man, where do you even start? I've been trying to think about this for the last few days, where to kind of angle into this conversation with one of the things that you do, because I kind of want to talk about code switching and I kind of want to talk about music and I kind of want to talk about improv and all of those things, which are all things that you do. uh, where do you think your comedy style, because your comedy style is very improv, right?
Yes.
And it's always kind of on the spot. It's a conversation between you and the audience. And how did that emerge from, what you were doing with music?
Um, I mean, it was all pretty organic the way it all came together. I mean, it was just me goofing around. Like I've just always been someone who loved to be goofy and silly all my life, and that carries over into all the different types of performance that I did, whether it was art school or just hanging out with friends or planning some kind of a sketch thing, or if I was playing an improv jam night with bands, and banter that would happen in between. So, I mean, it's kind of just always been a part of what I do.
Yeah, and I seem you seem to be someone who the music and the cadence of everything matters a lot more than the actual words that are being said. Like uh, a lot of your bits revolve around you'll switch from French to some sort of vaguely British accent to some kind of urban accent, and then go into music, which always seemed to me as kind of a okay, this is a way of speaking, this is a way of speaking, this is a way of speaking, and the music is a way of speaking too. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
So
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
is there like a wave that you're surfing on the audience's emotion, or like what is it that, because I obviously probably got like some like little tidbits and fractions of songs when you're gonna go over to the your DAW and start making things. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really a trippy thing, man. I mean, it's like there's really like nothing in my head until I get on the stage, and when I'm on stage, then it depends. Like as I'm approaching the stage, sometimes I'm thinking, how do I want to start this? And sometimes something will happen on my way to stage, like maybe someone says something, or maybe the sound isn't working immediately, or something like that, or the lighting's weird, and then that gives me the cue to play off of that for a while. So it's really just up to whatever's happening in that moment and how I'm entering into the space or getting onto the stage. Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, even when I did a set recently at the Bob Baker Marionette Theater for Ron Lynch's show, The Tomorrow Show. Um, I got on stage and the sound dude didn't have a chord for me, so we were like just scrambling for a chord for a long time, and I just kind of made it part of the bit, and it was just people were laughing, and it was fun. I love it when things like that happen because it's a cool opportunity.
Do you think that one of the things I was thinking about, improv in music on stage is definitely, in my estimation, it's more a part of Black music than white music. And I think that's got,
Interesting.
I think a lot of that has something to do with uh, uh, there's this kind of battle rap and playing the dozens and that history of how that music evolved versus kind of a bit more stuffy white people music, right? Uh like and I don't know whether that is a part and parcel of the culture or if it's just how those different musical styles evolved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think there's probably definitely. I think it's just kind of like you could break it down into like, I mean, I don't know, like I guess the beginning of the century. I mean, there's always been folk musics, and folk musics are always a little bit more casual and laid back and more community oriented and looser in many ways, on all different kinds of levels and all different kinds of countries. But in the United States specifically, the African American experience of having its own culture and kind of creating its own new like neo culture inside of the United States, came from a more folk music, kind of community based music, I guess, tradition. And then if you look at more like, I guess, Caucasian based experiential music is like more training, more discipline in the sense of like, like these are the ways that you do things, and this is how music works, and this is how we do this, and this is a little bit more regimented. And so I think, of course, there was always going to be a looseness, and that's where that idea of like soulful music and things like that came from, is because there were just less rules and they were doing whatever they wanted to do. And there's probably more. I mean, it's never like an absolute, in either case, but like,
Yeah.
I'd say
Well, it's also kind of an attention thing. I think like one of the things I was thinking about uh, was Chris Rock had a bit where when he was talking to Penn Jillette, for the Aristocrats documentary, where
mm,
he talked about how the black comedians at the time didn't worry about working blue because they weren't pulling the big audiences anyway. It didn't matter as much. Like
mm.
there wasn't that weird pressure to perform and have it be exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, because you never know when something's gonna like open, the door is gonna open, and you're not necessarily planning for it, so you're just continuing doing what you're doing, and then someday someone comes on stage, or like generally what can happen is like a white performer sees something that a black performer does and starts doing a little bit of it on stage, and then suddenly that starts to open up the door, and then hopefully if they're cool, they'll like credit where they got their inspiration from, and then suddenly you get like this new entrance of people coming into the space. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
can happen.
So, what are you doing now that the gig with Gordon is wrapped up?
um Now that I'm done with Commissioner Gordon, I am I'm just kind of, I don't know, existing. I'm doing a lot of little shows. I had a book that came out in October called Great Falls, Montana, Post-Punk Weirdos and a Tale of Coming Home Again. And it's an autobiography. So that came out on October 17th, and I promoted that for a while. I guess it's still kind of ambiently being promoted. And then Yeah, then I have a comedy special that's going to be shot March 1st, and yeah, getting ready for that and kind of visualizing what I want to do with it and so forth.
Has it been weird transitioning from like, because when you were band leader on the show, you had somewhere to be every weekday.
Mhm, mhm.
Now that's just not there anymore. Does that lack of regiment, is that a problem, or is that just kind of going back to what you used to before you were doing that?
No, I'm really grateful. I'm happy that I don't have to go to a place every day, and uh, it's awesome. And I appreciate. I'm actually having dinner with the whole band tonight, which is going to be fun. But I, yeah, it's really. I mean, there's a certain aspect of it that's weird. Like at first, where you're like, oh, I guess I don't have it. Oh, I guess there's this thing really isn't happening anymore. There's a period of time when you get used to that, but ultimately, like I'm just grateful that I had the time that I did with it, and I'm glad that I had all those experiences. But I'm really super stoked that it's over, and it gives me a chance to focus on what I want to do, um, and uh, and that's mainly it.
So the book thing, I didn't know that you had a book that just came out. But I, well, tell me about that because I'm a book guy. So
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that's it's just an autobiography, and it focuses kind of more mainly on my high school years, because I eventually want to make it a movie or a television series about it, hopefully. And that's basically it. I just wanted to tell a story of how I became who I am, and at least one part of it. So that's what it is. It's just talking about me growing up in Great Falls, Montana, and those experiences growing up in the '80s, and that's mainly it. It touches a little bit on Seattle when I moved to Seattle, a little bit when I moved to New York, and a little bit on when I moved to LA. But I'm going to save those for their own books.
I imagine Great Falls uh, in the '80s could probably not that different. I'm from the Poconos myself, so that
Mm,
that kind of in the '80s, the early computers, early online experience had to be an interesting thing. That kind of, well, I guess it was your your folks were in the military, so it was you had kind of a sense of the wider world in a way that, like, me growing up in the sticks necessarily didn't. Like, there was this opening up of, oh, there's a whole entire world out there that computers brought in.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, yes. I mean, well, the '80s. It's like with television and movies alone, you got so much information about the outside world. Plus, I got to go on vacation in the summer to visit my grandparents in Cleveland, Ohio, or I would go to Europe to visit my French relatives. And uh, so I already had kind of an understanding of a larger world out there, anyways. And then the '80s was like the perfect time for television and radio and movies. It was the heyday where it all kind of came together, and yeah, and created a really cool opportunity to have multiple worldviews. It was a super fun, awesome time, and I'm so glad that I grew up then, because I would have hated to grow up in the '90s or the or the 2000s compared to the '80s.
I imagine growing up now, it seems like there's too much. Like it,
Yes,
yeah, it's very hard to
it's
imagine.
overwhelming. It's over. I don't even know how people like it. It's like there's no wonder why there's so much anxiety and so many mental health problems in the younger generation. It's like they don't know what to choose amongst the millions of bazillions of options of being, and that's really tough. And maybe in some ways, people coming from that and figuring out how to deal with it will make them even stronger individuals, hopefully.
I imagine there's got to be, a certain percentage of kids who like find their thing and are just like, this is the thing, and you go with it. But you kind of feel bad, like for me, that was a thing where it was just like, oh yeah, it's going to be writing and journalism and stuff, and then the internet happens, and all of a sudden, it's impossible to get pay doing that. Uh, which there's going to be segments of kids who are going to have a hard time finding their thing and realizing that their thing is just not monetizable.
True.
And
Yeah.
I don't know what you do for those poor kids.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's something I think about a lot, but also I think AI is going to really change things quite a bit in the next 10 years. So I
I
think,
totally, yeah, you're a very big tech guy too.
yeah,
And you follow a lot of that stuff pretty heavy, and I don't think AI is going to change things in the way that everyone's panicked that it's going to
yes,
make it creatives are just not going to be a thing, and I don't think that that's the case at all.
no, not at all. In fact, it'll be the other way around. It's like AI needs people to tell it what to do, or to give it direction where to go and things like that. And it's like the people that have vision will be people that will help with that, hopefully. And so I'm not really worried about creative people. The only thing I'm worried about is just people like the in between people, the facilitators of things and CEOs or will become unnecessary. Um, there's a lot of people's jobs that are already barely justifiable for existing. So it's like I think that those jobs will be taken, of course, but it'll open them up for other possibilities. So I don't know. I just hope it fucks us up in some way.
You hope it fucks us up in some way. It does seem
Yeah,
like things need some shaking up.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't continue doing whatever the hell this is. This remedial bullshit kindergarten shit.
So, well, what are the things that you just said you got a new special that you're shooting soon,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
what that's going to be more improv, so it's almost I don't think there's any reason to talk about like what's going to be in there. Like it's not like you're not the work on new material kind of comedian who's going to
yeah. I'm
have
not like
bits
doing
that
a
you
bunch of
planned
gigs here.
out.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. It's just gonna happen the way it does, but it'll be cool. It's gonna take place in 1998, so that'll be one of the anchors for it.
So it's trying time travel.
It's a period. Yeah, it's a period comedy special.
That sounds fun. So, and when it comes to you in the audience, we brought that up a little bit before. I caught a talk with you at Google where somebody asked you your opinions on Bobby McFerrin, and that kind of stuck in my because I hadn't actually put it together that there's similar things that you two do, but there's also a McFerrin clip that I caught at some point where he, was demonstrating chord progression and he like bounces around the stage going like ba 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 and jumps to the next note that he hadn't done yet, and the entire audience knew what the note was,
Hmm.
which with what you do seems really relevant in that you get a room full of people and they kind of all start to line into the same experience and know what the next note's going to be, even though it hasn't been played yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of the yeah. I mean, that's kind of what improvisation is. In many ways, it's just listening for patterns and then kind of being preemptive about what comes next. Yeah, I mean, it's that, but also like when you get ahead of that. Oh, well, I mean, it's also a combination of experience too. If you have a lot of experience hearing and playing a lot of different types of musics, then you know more of what could come next, when you're improvising than someone with less experience. Uh but it's mostly about listening and yeah, it's in the listening you figure out so much about what could come next, and then you can start messing with what comes next because you can also do the unexpected.
Has there been times where that's entirely gone wrong and just completely fallen flat?
Uh, I mean, I'm sure there are times. I don't necessarily remember too many of those things, but yeah, I mean, sometimes things don't go. But the thing is, like, there's always the next moment, so it doesn't all have to be gold, you know. Sometimes it can just not be the right thing, but then you just find out what the right thing is and you get back on track.
So do you have like a go-to when it doesn't work? Is there like a, oh, that didn't work. Next.
Uh, gosh. I mean, no, not really. No, I mean, it really depends on what's going on in the room and or the space or whatever it is. There's usually another idea just around the corner, so you just need to remain open and don't freak out about, oh shit, this isn't working, and then like go down a spiral of like, oh, it's not working. You know, it's like that's never helpful. So it's mostly just like, well, it's not working. Here's the next thing. It's, you know, that's just the attitude for it.
So what's this? I only do a half-hour show, so we're actually getting pretty close to the end now. Like, so what are the things that are really interesting you right now that you're kind of keyed into and paying attention to?
uh
I know you're a car guy. I know you're.
yeah, where we're headed, you know, technologically, and like the decisions that we're making in general as a human species, and trying to move, you know, I'm just encouraging, I try to encourage things that are moving in the direction of a post-binary reality, you know, in a post-capitalistic society. And those are the things that I'm rooting for. And just because I think, I don't know, I just get tired of it every day. It's like I'm a little bit too much of a news junkie, and I do need to figure out a way to take a break from that. But
My, like, YouTube algorithms and stuff are showing me less and less news, which I think is weird. But yeah, it's been weird to kind of pull back from especially now that it's, I know it's an election year again, and oh, we're all supposed
yes,
to pay
oh
attention
God,
all the time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, the thing is about news, it's like it's just definitely diminishing returns. You know, after a while, it's like you pretty much know the large swaths about what's going on, and the rest of it is just a repeats and repackaging of the same information. But I think for me, I just try to focus on where positivity, and not even necessarily positivity, but just like forms of well, there's just areas that give the common person more options to realize, make them realize that they're not fucked, and that things aren't fucked, and that things are, you know, there's nothing you can do, and all that kind of stuff, you know, by doing small things that they can do for themselves immediately. And so any kind of technology uh, that enables people to be more I guess collective, but at the same time, like solving their own problems, you know, as much as they can, and just whatever does that. So whether it's technology that helps to get you off the grid, you know, or if it's you know, whatever health technology, supplements, cars, transportation, public transportation, you know, machines that can harvest water from the air, whatever these things are. Because my hope is that we'll be able to bypass all these terrible habits that we have that we just can't get over because of the capitalistic mindset and the addiction to money and greed. And there's no way you're going to get people off of that. Like when people are talking about, oh, we're going to change the system, man. It's like, no, those people are too far gone. They're in the alley with the needles in their arms, and there's maybe one or two of them out of 1,000, maybe. But you just have to treat it like we have to bypass the system.
Well, it seems to me that those people are addicted to, having the newest thing, the coolest thing. But how do you make that new cool thing the thing that actually makes everybody's lives better, instead of just being the new cool thing that only the small group of people with lots and lots of money can have, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about the people who make the cool things. you know, not even the people that want the cool things. I'm talking about people who are responsible for the things that we have in the world. Those types of people, those are the people that need to be bypassed, because these things can be made
Because the
anyways.
thing that
You know,
they want, that they think is cool, isn't necessarily what everybody else wants and needs.
yeah. Well, wants and needs, or it is something that people want need, but the only reason for it is not out of benevolence. It's because they want to make a lot of money. So everything is just like all money based. It's like got to make those profits rise, got to make that money, and that's just a very inefficient fuel source. It's very limited and doesn't take into account the nuances of human existence, and so that's the problem. That's what creates more inequity in the world. And so it's for me, it's figuring out how to enable the everyday person to get everything that they need mostly on their own, and not have to utilize these other systems. And in doing so, teamed with AI, I think that it is possible that we can live in a world where we have like incredible inventions and amazing things, the technological achievements that make our lives easier and, you know, make things enjoyable and all of that stuff. And also just getting rid of billionaires and people like that. It's like that they're silly. Billionaires are stupid. It's like it doesn't even need to exist. It has nothing to do with making this world a better place. It's just an addiction. It's a product of addiction. So those are the things I look for and root for.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Fun. Do it yourself. You know,
Oh,
DIY.
yeah, well, I think that's kind of part of it. Is there, like I always think about like what happens when we get the Star Trek replicator, right? Like that's
Yes,
the thing
exactly.
that makes it that you can, as long as you can program it to make the thing, you don't have want anymore, right? Like
Yes,
you eliminate that need to have the money to get the thing when you can just make the thing out of raw stuff.
100%. I mean, that's the goal. You know, the goal is self-sufficiency. You know, distributed resources, and because there's the fact of the matter is like there's plenty for everybody.
Yeah.
It's just that again, there's like these greedy ass motherfuckers that are just like, I've got to make a profit. You got to buy up all the water. Got to buy up the air rights. We'll be charging people for
Yeah,
air.
right.
Like, like none of that shit makes any fucking sense at all. It's like the dumbest. It's just dumb. There's no explanation for it, and
Well,
like
because
someone can like,
I mean, there's got to be that segment of like the auto executives who are like, well, if we screw up the air, that just means we can charge for fresh air in our apartment complex.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yes, I know. It's just it's crazy. It just doesn't stop. It just goes on and on and on and on. And the only way to change it is like if everybody has most of their needs met without those services, then they're just rendered irrelevant. And that's what needs to happen. And hopefully AI, you know, will
Help
attack those systems.
facilitate that. One can hope. One can hope.
Yeah, full on hope here.
All right. Well, thank you, Reggie. It was great talking to you. I appreciate you coming
Yeah, man.
by.
Sick. Yeah, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Be careful, be well. Hail Lilith.